Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside Dave.
Hello.
And if you're watching on YouTube, eating one man eating machine, having his one man mukbang there on screen is John Ford. Hi John, how you doing?
More about yours, guys.
This is quality sound for those listening on our audio podcast. John's tucking into his dinner because he's obviously came in late. John, what are you having there?
Lovely, lovely fish supper here.
Nice, great. Guys, it's been 2 weeks since our last podcast. A lot has happened. We will catch up on all of that. We are heading into this coming weekend. This week has been the Elite Ice Hockey League's Pride Week, celebrating all things equality and pride within across the UK. All of the teams have embraced, or most of the teams have embraced so far, the changing of logos, and we've seen a number of different jerseys being launched this week and released, and ahead of primarily this weekend's Pride Games. So we will get into that later in this podcast. For those watching our YouTube channel, we have a nice Pride theme going on. We have a nice Pride background, and our overlays are all rainbow colored and pride colored. So that's part and parcel of our commitment to it as well. But we'll go. Oh, sorry, John.
No, I was just saying.
Oh,
Love it.
okay. Yeah, because it's an audio podcast. So
I was about to
you
say
say it
quality
out loud.
podcast work there.
I was taught as a small child not to talk with my mouth full, so I was just given a visual cue there that I was really enjoying the updated Pride background and graphics that are surrounding us here.
Right.
They're lovely. Well done, Marty.
Thanks, John.
With
Dave,
that, I'm going to go back to my fish supper.
You do that, Dave. We'll switch over to you. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Spent all week working on my new home office, so hopefully we'll be in it next week, which will be great. And then next podcast, I should be coming from there, which will be great fun.
Nice.
Just a bit dedicated space to work from, continuing to work from home. So I'm currently in what should be the spare bedroom, but it's been taken up by all my stuff from the move and all my office equipment. So.
Yep. So you'll be looking forward to that and a bit more space for yourself.
Can't wait.
John, I know you're in the middle of eating, but you've returned from Scotland. The last time we recorded, you were sitting in the comfort of your living room, looking like a true Scotsman, with your checked shirt and what looked like a log cabin background. How you finding being back in Belfast?
It's nice to clarify. You said I looked like a true Scotsman. I thought we'd agreed that I looked like a Canadian woodsman, and
Well, you did.
I want to yet again clarify, but by you calling me a true Scotsman, I did record the last podcast whilst wearing underwear. Let's be totally clear about that.
You're Scottish hosier. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's.
I didn't have my Scottish hose out.
Canadian hosier. Oh, so many options for podcast names already. Guys, I'm gonna get stuck into our podcast as we normally
Me
do.
too. I'm going to get stuck in here as well.
You get stuck into your food there, John, and I'll run down
You give us the
league as it
rundown.
stands.
You give us the rundown the league, and I'll chirp in at some point.
Perfect, great. I'll call you when I need you. So we'll start off as we normally do, and we'll look at the current standings across the Premier Sport Elite Ice Hockey League. Starting at the top of the league, in first place is the Cardiff Devils, sitting first with 26 games played and 37 points, followed by Sheffield in second with 21 games played and 35 points. Belfast are in third with 21 games and 32 points. Nottingham in fourth with 21 games played and 22 points. Guildford in fifth with 23 games played and 20 points. Manchester in sixth with 24 games played and 20 points. Coventry seventh with 17 games played, 16 points. Glasgow eighth with 17 games played, 14 points. Dundee in ninth with 19 games played and 13 points, and Fife then sitting in last place in 10th place with 21 games and 13 points. There is a massive differential you can see in the number of games played throughout across the league. The highest number played is by Cardiff with 26 games played, followed by Manchester with 24 games played, and right there at the bottom we have Glasgow and Coventry with 17 games played apiece. I suppose my first question is going to come in. Normally, I would go into the first question being your take on how the league is currently standing, but I'm going to start actually this week with just more of your thoughts on the fact that where I suppose there's been a number of different issues going on. Obviously, COVID protocols and COVID stuff which we will get into in period one. I know John's got a good bit. He wants to talk about that, I think, and we will talk about that. But I mean, we've got Glasgow who made the executive decision on themselves that they would just postpone some games because of the inability to bring fans into the arena. So they postponed some games for that. Coventry then were obviously got stuck in the middle of a number of different, I suppose, a number of the different teams they were supposed to be facing across December had to go into protocol, so therefore they didn't get to play, so they're down a number of games as well. I mean, Dave, we'll go to you because I know John's eating, so we're going to go to you. You've drawn the short straw. I mean, we're at a point where we're in the middle of we're towards the middle of January now. League is supposed to finish in April. I think I read somewhere that in order for like the Glasgow clan to, and this probably would then apply to the Blaze too, in order for them to play all of the remaining games before the end of the season, I mean, I think they had to condense down, what is it like? Is it 23 games or something? They have to condense down now into such a really short period of time compared to everyone else. I mean, how are teams going to do that?
Yeah, it's going to be painful, and some teams are going to need to forfeit games, I think, because I can't see there being much reason to do, especially the way the current climate is, to do like a Wednesday game in the midst of all this. There's already, I'm not sure about attendance to the games, but there's already been a huge drop-off in the number of people like going out for dinner or going shopping. Generally socialising has dropped quite significantly. I know in Northern Ireland anyway. I would have a feeling it's probably something similar in Scotland. Obviously, we know England's a bit of a rule unto itself, so it's probably went up. But it's a Sorry for all our listeners. Somebody has made an executive decision to mute John because he was being too much of a pain. So all I could see was him waving his arms back and forward.
Clearly, making political points on this podcast is not allowed.
I was muting you because all I could hear was this munch of food, and I was like, I need to stop that. It was just like, it was.
Oh, you want to prepare yourself now? Then here comes the chip butty.
You're being muted again. Dave, continue.
Yeah, so it was. So I think that there's an element of it's going to be tough. If they want to do midweek games, I know that that's something they do, but I think you end up losing money if in my opinion. It's going to be tough to finish off the league strong for any of these teams. I know Belfast's in for a bit of a hammering between now and the end of the season with all our Scottish games being finished off. I think pretty much by the end of the month or the end of next month anyway. And then it's all, we were talking about this at the game, it's all just going to be to people we haven't played too much, and then you've not got a rapport with them, so it's going to be interesting.
100%. I mean, we as you said, Dave, like in the last game we were there, we did discuss this. It was it was again another visit from a Scottish team, and it was Fife actually. It was the Fife game that was brought. That we were playing them there last week or whatever it was, and we discussed the fact that like our last meeting now, I think with Fife will probably is in Fife in February time, which we will be at the game. And I think that's the last time we play them. I'm pretty sure that's the last time we. Is there one more time after that?
The last game of our regular season at home is against Fife this year.
But was that changed then because of did they no, we didn't play it. Okay, so there we go. But I mean, it just seems to be obviously with all of the chopping and changing of how the games have been working out because of obviously COVID and trying to fit in. And for what, I will put my hand. I'll be the first one to applaud the teams and the league and stuff for being able to kind of at short notice. It's tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be tough to arrange at short notice those changes to asking teams like, do you mind coming down and switching out and going to here instead of going there? Could someone go over to Belfast and do that? I fully applaud the teams that decided. They said, do you know what? Yeah, we'll do it. And fair play to them. And you can see that obviously Cardiff is one of them because Cardiff have played 26 games. So clearly Cardiff have went, yep, we'll go and we'll play. We'll get our games out of the way. And I guess, as we were saying, like it's going to come to a point where there's going to be, especially for those teams who've still got a lot of games to play, where it's going to be trying to find those balance of where the games are going to fit in, and obviously just balance up playing so many games in one play in such a small succession. And
when you consider as well that really the capability that we would have had at the start of the season for doubling up games, like I know it's been a discussion already in a few other places about this doubling up of games. you can only really do that when you've still got the Challenge Cup, and like we're the first ones to moan about the fact that the Challenge Cup, and we're going to talk about the Challenge Cup in this podcast as well. It's an overly bulbous competition. It's bigger than it has to be. But at the start of the season, what we could have had is double up of games, which we used to have. We used to have the league and cup games. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact that there's a difference in how those games used to be played, you had some that went to overtime, some that didn't, all the rest of it, it gets messy. Mm-hmm. But you don't now have that capacity because currently we're down to, is it 7 teams that are currently still in the Challenge Cup? We've only had one of the quarterfinals completely finalised now. And you're losing that ability. So what Dave says about teams having to potentially forfeit games, and unfortunately that's not, I mean, the looking glass is on Coventry and Glasgow for that, because they are now significantly behind the likes of Cardiff. They're sitting with 9 games in hand on Cardiff, which that's a lot of games. Yeah,
I'm going to take us back, and we're going to look before we move on. Across the pond to the NHL, just and just kind of get your take on the standings as they are at this time. Obviously, they're a bit hard to kind of. I suppose they are what they are at the moment in terms of we can clearly see the Cardiff are sitting top, but again that's inflated because obviously they've played 26 games, which is 5 games in hand over basically the next teams after them. So obviously Sheffield, Belfast, and the Panthers all have 5 games still to play. It doesn't matter about the Panthers there because even if they play the 5 games, they wouldn't meet Cardiff. But Belfast and Sheffield both have 5 games in hand, and they're within points of Cardiff. I mean, at the moment it looks like Sheffield and Belfast are the strongest teams at this current time. Belfast Giants obviously with a really good run of form at the moment with 10 games straight on the bounce where no loss. I don't want to jinx it, but I mean they're looking strong coming into the second half of the season. I think this is what we were looking for as Giants fans. Dave, coming to you first. I mean, as I say, taking Cardiff out of it and moving Cardiff down to maybe probably where they would be sitting, maybe in 3rd place rather than actually in 1st. I mean, your thoughts? I mean, we Sheffield. Yeah. It's a 2-horse race at the moment between Sheffield and Belfast.
You don't want to say it, but it looks like it's looking that way. But everything can change this run to the end. The Giants, in my opinion, have been stellar ever since sort of the halfway mark. After they came off their COVID break, they have really sort of put the marker down and went running. And we were, again, just before the podcast, we were talking about this. I randomly had the stats up, and like two or three guys in the top 10 goal scorers, 2 netminders in the top 10 netminders. You can't go wrong. It's really sort of, hopefully that continues on into the rest of the year. And then I think a lot of it is a lot of points that were grabbed by the Giants and Sheffield is with that implosion that happened in Nottingham. If the Giants were putting 7 goals past Nottingham. Like, when have you ever seen that? Like, to be fair, Fife were playing better. Fife were playing a hell of a lot better than Nottingham have been playing. And they deserved to win a few games against Nottingham this season. It just didn't quite pan out. I have to say, the last few games I've seen Fife playing, I think they've been stellar also, and don't deserve to be at the bottom based on what I've seen. And I don't like to see Fife down there. I think that they take risks with some of their players and give people chances, and we need that in the league. So
I agree, yeah. John, before we move on, just your general thoughts, in terms of the league as it stands at this time.
I mean, I totally understand, and agree in principle with what Dave's saying, that taking Cardiff out to one side, even though they're sitting at the top, the whole games in hand thing does kind of put them at risk. The one thing I would say, and I've heard said in a few different places, is it's important to remember that points on the board are more important than games in hand. Cardiff are at the top because they have the points. And like Dave says, things can turn at the drop of a hat. There is absolutely nothing to say that Belfast, Sheffield, Nottingham pick up. I mean, Dave's 100% right. Let's just discount Nottingham at this point. They're a team in complete disarray at this point. But the other 2 teams, there is absolutely no guarantee of walking out of a game against Guildford, a game against each other, or a game against Cardiff with points. There is absolutely no guarantee of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we are in the business end of the season. Mind, obviously not the steal a phrase that's kind of too commonplacely used, but we are looking towards the end, coming up towards the tail end of this season. And tough games for a lot of teams, so that'll be something to see. As you both have clearly said, the challenge is on, and anything can change in terms of any, drop of a puck, anything can
And look,
change in any
the
game.
other thing to bear in mind is now that because we're in the business end, it's not just about league title at this point. It's not just about the fact that we've still got a few Challenge Cup games to go to finalise that competition. We've got those bottom two places to be decided, and we've got playoffs to think about as well. Right now, you're looking at Dundee and Fife sitting down there. I don't see that being the way that ends. Dundee have struggled, but to me, they are starting to pick up. They've had a couple of bad losses against us, but they've picked up a really good win on the road here in Belfast over the Christmas period as well.
Yeah.
The risk that you've got is with Nottingham. Like, you could potentially be looking at even the first round of playoffs without Nottingham. If they don't start getting their act together, you could see them really quickly drop down through that list. Same thing with Coventry. You look at last night's result in the Challenge Cup against Belfast. To me, that's not a team, and that's not an effort level that gets a team through into playoffs. So to lose those two big teams, if I was to pick two teams right now that I thought might drop out of the first round of playoffs, it would be the Nottingham and it would be the Coventry of the league, and I would expect them to drop out.
Yeah, and that's a good call. Although obviously my take on it is Coventry always seems to be that bogey team that tends to do well when it comes to the playoffs and ends up in the playoff final weekend. So you never know. Stranger things have happened. Guys, I'm gonna switch attention across the pond to the NHL, and we'll take a wee look there at the current standings, wildcard spots as they currently stand. Starting in the Eastern Conference in the Metropolitan Division, sitting top of there is Carolina in first place with 33 games played and 50 points, followed by the New York Rangers in second with 37 games played and 50 points, and the Washington Capitals in third place with 37 games played and 49 points. In the Atlantic Division, then we have sitting top is Florida Panthers. Yes, you heard me right. The Florida Panthers sitting top with 36 games played and 53 points. Tampa Bay in second with 38 games played and 53 points. And Toronto sitting in third with 35 games played and 49 points. The wild card spots currently held as it currently stands with Pittsburgh in first and Boston in second. We'll just mention just because obviously for Aaron, who isn't here today, and I should have mentioned that Aaron is preparing for his busy move, so he's had to kind of pull out of tonight's episode, and he is Philadelphia sitting in fifth place under wildcard spots at this time. So nothing more to say there for that. Putting our attention across to the Western Conference in the Central Division. All change in the Central Division, unfortunately for Dave. But Nashville sitting there top in first place with 37 games played and 50 points. John is happy man there, cheering away. Second place Colorado with 33 games played with 47 points, and St. Louis in third with 36 games played and 47 points. In the Pacific then division, it's Vegas sitting top still in first place with 39 games played and 48 points. Anaheim in second with 39 games played and 45 points, and Los Angeles, which is wow, because the Kings have had a nightmare past 3 or 4 seasons, so seeing them sitting there in third place is an achievement. 36 games played and 41 points. Again, we could look at potentially COVID protocols having a massive effect as well on different standings and everything else, but as you guys said earlier on, it's the points that you have. But again, protocol has been in place in a lot of different games. Several games have been cancelled. We know from the last podcast that a number of games in Canada were cancelled due to the protocols and changes there and COVID restrictions and fan engagement, so they decided to cancel a number of games. So there's a bit of, again, things will balance out over the next week or two, but the wildcard spots are currently held by Minnesota, thankfully, and San Jose are sitting in second place for the wildcard spots. John, come to you first, because you're a happy man. Nashville sitting first place there, in the division. Let's get your thoughts.
Last couple of weeks has been an absolute revelation for the Preds. They have smashed it out of the park over the festive New Year period. Ending runs, I'm seeing the pesky Preds hashtag is starting to trend again. We are starting to knock a few big heads. None better than the last game a couple of nights ago against the Canes. Canes were sitting on, was it a 7 or 8 win streak, and took them to OT, and then got to be fair, like, it is a lucky OT winner, but it's still an OT winner. Comes off a defenseman from a slap shot high up in the zone and just falls perfectly for the next man up and top corner. Skate off, happy days, thank you for the home win. But I mean, this is what we talk about. This is how things change. And yeah, it's NHL regular season. We don't really care. You want to be in those top 3 spots. You want to be guaranteed your position for playoffs. And right now, that's where we are.
Yeah. Dave, I mean, Minnesota sitting their first wild card spot, but having only played 33 games compared to, 37 games that, that Nashville have played in the same division. I mean...
Still all to play for, yeah.
Exactly.
There's we missed 4 games, and as you mentioned, they were all Canadian teams, Winnipeg and the another one. Can't remember.
Montreal, was it Montreal?
Might have been.
No.
I have to double check, but Sanders. And which meant that dropped 4 games, still 2 wins on the trot, but you're just not playing as much. You keep it up. Big win against the Caps though last night, which is you can never sniff it, and hopefully that'll continue. And another big win against Boston as well. I think the night before or 2 nights before.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can keep that trucking. I would love to see. I'd love to see the Wild in. I want to see the Wild in the playoffs whenever the Blackhawks are out there, so don't put us out in the first round, and then we can see how it goes. It's to me, pre playoff hockey in the NHL is sometimes a bit of a mixed bag, but I think we're getting closer and closer to the business end where the games start to really matter, especially when you're looking at some of those teams that are not quite in the mix, that are going to really need to try. So we'll probably see a big push from people like Dallas and Edmonton and things like that there that really start needing the points. So.
Yeah.
What about you then, Marty? So obviously the Leafs are sitting, they've kind of floated around in those top 3 spots recently. Looking at their current form, they're definitely a team that like performing at home, going 14-4-1 home record. Away, not as good, 9-5-2. You're sitting on a 1-loss streak at the minute. What do you make of the Leafs?
I don't think there's too much to worry about at the moment. I think when we look at games, I know we've been talking quite heavily about games in hand and stuff at the moment, but when we look at the games in hand that the Leafs have, when you compare them with, like, say, Tampa and Florida, we're battling in there with the points. I mean, Austin Matthews, I don't know if you've seen, Austin Matthews is on a record, almost like a record-breaking point streak at the moment within the NHL, and definitely a Leafs franchise record. He is just outperforming everyone, and it's amazing performance that he's been putting in. And they've been talking about obviously his return to Toronto, because they've been on a run of away games at this currently. They returned to Toronto, and will he continue with that point streak? And it's great to watch. I mean, as you say, it's important. The next month or so will be those key games that we're looking to kind of obviously pull in and kind of keep focus on. And I'm just hoping that we keep this form going, just so that we can obviously continue again and join the playoff run again, like the previous few years. So fingers crossed. I'm still very positive that we're continuing with a good streak at the moment. We've had 1 loss there, but let's see it continuing. The other thing I wanted to comment before we move on from the standings was just I mentioned it kind of tongue in cheek there whenever I was going through the standings, but a few teams, 3 teams in particular, there's a couple of teams there that definitely are surprising names to see in the mix for sitting in top places. Now, fair play to Florida. The Florida Panthers, they are 36 games played and 53 points. They're holding their own. They have 2 games in hand over Tampa, who are the next under them, who 38 games played and 53 points as well. Florida have had a fantastic season, and you would imagine saying that. Like, you think about Florida in the past, and you just think to yourself, they're in the mix. They're doing really well.
Listen. When you look at the stats there, like I said about the Leafs being a home team, a team that like performing at home. All right, the Florida Panthers are currently sitting 19-3 at home. Now, based on this last weekend, that Florida Panthers home arena is definitely somewhere where you can go and have a bit of fun. And we might talk about it later on in period 3. We'll make a decision. We'll make an informed decision when we get there as to whether or not we talk about that. But clearly, it's an arena that everyone likes going to because no matter what, you're going to have fun.
I feel like Dave's blissfully unaware of what we're talking about.
I have no idea talking about.
Oh, easy. In the Pacific Division as well, I also mentioned obviously Anaheim and Los Angeles, the Kings sitting second and third. I mean, the Ducks and the Kings, like we haven't seen them sitting in those positions in a long while. Or feels like we haven't seen them there in a long while. Especially LA, like we haven't seen them been this form since the last time they won their Stanley Cup. I mean, they took a big dip after winning their last Stanley Cup, and they just weren't the same team after that. But you know they're sitting there, 36 games played, 41 points. I mean, it's not impressive points.
It's got to be something said about having Snoop coming out on comms. I think pretty much since that game, something's clicked with them.
The only other team I want to mention, but we will talk about in the second period, because they're just woes. It's just one bad turn going to another, and that's Arizona. I mean, we will talk about them in the second period. But I seen a funny thing this week about when is it time that Austin Matthews will sign a contract with Arizona? And I was like, it's a sinking ship. Don't do it. I was like, was someone being serious?
Depends where they're going to end up. He might like somewhere a bit colder than Arizona.
Yeah, you never know. Guys, I'm going to round it up there. I'm going to finish off our preamble, kind of our pre-game, and move on, if that's okay with you guys, into our period 1. Let's get stuck into the show. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of news from around the UK. We have a number of different stories, and most of them are coming from John in this period. But I'm going to start off first and go with my story first, if that's okay, guys. We were discussing obviously in our previous in last week's 2 weeks ago, our last podcast, about the COVID protocols, the COVID restrictions that came into place both in in Wales and also in Scotland. Part of that was that the number of fans allowed in arenas to watch live games was being restricted quite heavily. We had discussed at the time that obviously the Scottish teams were restricted down to about 200 fans or 200 spectators in the arena and the rinks and arenas, and they have stuck by that. Some teams, as we discussed previously, Fife and Dundee, decided to carry on, put together something for fans in order to still have some fans in the arena, and also then obviously they had their webcasts. I suppose Glasgow for it took a bit of time for them to kind of figure out what they were doing, I suppose, is the best, and being polite about it.
And that's being polite. They still haven't figured out what they're doing. Let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so Glasgow have finally bit the bullet and are providing webcasts. We'll be doing webcasts moving forward. Obviously because of the restrictions that are still in place. The reason why I'm bringing this up, guys, is that obviously we call an executive here, John. Is it an assembly in Scotland? Is it?
Yeah, it's the Scottish Assembly.
So obviously the First Minister scrapped the 500 spectator limit for outdoor events this past week, just in time for obviously Scotland's top football teams to return as well from their winter break, as well as the Six Nations starting. So that's helpful for them. John's cheering there. But the indoor sports are still left obviously dangling with not knowing exactly what to do. So at the moment they must continue to play in front of a maximum of 200 fans until at the latest January 24th, where they'll make some kind of decision around what's going to happen. I mean, that number is also being used for things like theatres and live events and live venues and stuff as well. So I guess the teams are still sitting in limbo as we speak. And I think I mentioned, I think it was Dave, I think I mentioned this the other day, and it still applies. You know, when you think about, Scottish teams, Scottish fans aren't able to go and watch their own team play in like, say, for example, Fife or whatever it might be. They're not able to go and see their own fans play in their home arena, but, jump on the boat, come across and watch your team here in Belfast.
We could literally have all of them in Belfast. They could all sit in that away section.
Yeah, and
look,
we did see that.
We joked that the Fife fans don't need to bother about that because their gate at the minute is so shocking.
Yeah,
to get 200, they'd have to increase their gate to get to the 200 limit. Let's be honest.
I mean, at the moment, fair play to Fife and Dundee, who have continued to play their games, in front of restricted crowds, even against like big teams and as well as what they would probably deem as local derby matches. Obviously against each other. I mean, the reason I bring this up is obviously we do see a lot of games coming up, and we also have our trip planned for February for our double header away, and I've got my fingers crossed for the 24th of January that they're going to lift restrictions. John, being the Scot that you are, and what's your take? Do you think
It's a tough one. I have been keeping sort of more sort of on top of what's going on across there, or at least trying to. The indication seems to be that there will be some sort of lifting of these restrictions come the 24th. Anyone who's watching on YouTube will have seen Dave whenever the football and the rugby was mentioned. There's a clear financial thing happening there. That's why the lifting of restrictions is happening for those big outdoor events. The argument could also be made that COVID safe and all of that is maybe easier to maintain in an outdoor setting where you've got constant ventilation coming in. Let's be honest, none of these lawmakers have been to Fife and realised that there is still constant ventilation going through that building. It's the coldest place in the world, and I guarantee you probably even COVID can't survive in there. But you can't argue. Now, look, questions have been made as well in the Scottish Parliament about this, and with specific queries about ice hockey. So I watched just today, actually, there was one of the elected officials from Dundee raised this question with the First Minister at First Minister's Questions and asked what is being done to help these smaller sports. So they were lumped in a little bit with netball and basketball, but ice hockey was mentioned by name. The Dundee Stars were mentioned by name in this, and they are looking to get a combination of a financial package out for the teams which keeps them viable, which is a key thing for us right now. These three teams, you look at the restrictions that Cardiff are operating under, they're even more strict, but they've got probably a more stable financial situation. But these three Scottish teams are so reliant on the gate that without the money coming in from fans, 200 fans isn't enough to pay the wages for those players for each night. It doesn't pay for the ice to be made available. It doesn't pay for the guy who drives the Zamboni or the Olympia if you're in Dundee. And like whatever else, like they need to get to a position where fans can be let back in, or they've got some way of generating income or getting money, support money from the government. Otherwise, we end up back 2 years ago, and we end up with either a league that stops with or carries on with 7 teams if Cardiff continues on, and if Nottingham can sort out their own problems and whatever else. So yeah, fingers crossed by the time we get to the weekend just before Valentine's Day when we're heading out there, that we're actually able to get into these rinks. But failing that, we'll go and we'll have a few beers anyway.
A nice romantic
we'll drink outside.
Away trip.
Yep, we'll go stand outside the arenas.
Yeah, I'll get a webcast on my phone and find a projector somewhere, just put it onto the side of the building.
Tailgate party.
In February in Fife, yeah. Sounds good.
Dave,
tropical.
Dave, coming to you.
Yeah, positively.
Coming to you on this, we have, we were looking at, we were talking there about obviously venues and about the numbers that are allowed to go into these venues. Obviously set at 200. A lot of talk has been that the number just felt like it was being plucked out of the air, like there was no actual real thinking about what those numbers were. You've got the likes of, like, we're taking Fife out of it because we know Fife is a small enough rink, but Dundee and more so Glasgow, the Braehead Shopping Centre Arena, Glasgow's arena, the Clans Arena. I mean, they could
the
easily fit.
Clan.
I mean, they could easily fit triple the amount. I mean, even quadruple that amount. Like they could easily fit enough people in and still have space to socially distance. I mean, it's there's difficulties there, but I mean, would you agree with that there could be things taken in place? Obviously, it would take a bit of planning.
Yeah, there's definitely it was a number that was picked primarily for indoor venues, thinking cinemas, theaters, rather than sporting events. But in the same way it happened over here, there's like this moment where they go, like with the Giants there that didn't mention anything about indoor sporting events. There was, there's talk of putting restrictions on outdoor, and then suddenly they're, oh, yeah, you can't sell alcohol and you can't do this, that, and the other. And it's like a knee jerk. They know they have to do something. And the 200 makes sense for like a big cinema. If you're trying to, or a big theater. You're bringing the numbers down. You're trying to keep control over it. There's only when it's an event, you can only got like one in and out, one out, one in excess in and one out. Where really Fife could just stick all their fire doors open, and you might as well be standing outside. It's you could easily fit 500 in there and still be plenty of space for the rest of everybody else.
Listen, if you open all those doors on a windy night, you're going to end up with an outdoor arena anyway.
Roof off, away it goes. Tinfoil can only hold it down so long.
I mean, we talk about obviously the Scottish teams, and obviously the other team that has been affected by the same restrictions or similar restrictions. Actually, I don't think there are any fans at all in the rink. Is obviously the Cardiff Devils. The Cardiff Devils are also affected by the Welsh government's guidelines. That means that they can't have anybody coming in. This past week, in the last couple of days, Cardiff put out a package, I suppose, directed towards their season ticket holders, and I'm just going to go through that with you guys just in case you aren't aware of it, and I want to get your thoughts after that. Obviously the Cardiff Devils have a game coming up this weekend against the Fife Flyers. The game itself is going to be played behind closed doors. So the Cardiff Devils have offered season ticket holders free access to watch all live streams on Devils Live TV. It's not a replacement for the tickets. It's a gesture from the Devils to the fans as a way to say, we're sorry this is happening, but this is a way for you to watch it. To make up one of the missed games, the playoff quarterfinal home game is going to be included in the season tickets. It's going to be offered for free rather than you having to pay additional money for the quarterfinal ticket the quarterfinal ticket. So that's hoping that they get the playoffs. They should. But yes, for each additional game then that they do miss, they're going to receive the value of the game of your season ticket. So the number of games played behind closed doors in the version, in either a merch voucher, credit towards next season ticket, a match night ticket voucher, or a refund to the value of the games missed. Corporate season ticket holders will then also receive the same options as regular season ticket holders, and larger corporate partners then will also be contacted on an individual basis to kind of advise them of anything. And then anybody who's purchased a ticket for the game that has been played behind closed doors, they're going to be contacted and they're going to be offered a voucher to use at a future game of their choice. I mean, they're trying their best, I suppose, to help to do what they can. I mean, John, we had a brief conversation about this last night, not too much, but what's your thoughts on this?
Listen, we've been really lucky here in Belfast. I don't think there's been any postponed games through COVID for us. As far as home games are concerned, there's been a couple of away games because the Giants went into COVID protocol. As far as being a season ticket holder, I mean, Cardiff have just set the bar that if COVID does have any impact in any prolonged form on home games, you can't look any further than what Todd and the team in Cardiff have put together for those season ticket holders and for those corporate sponsors and everyone else who has put money into the team expecting a product to be there for them to see, or expecting their brand to be put out there. That's massive. It's exactly how we would expect to be treated in Belfast, I expect. I think we would like to see something very similar. The only thing it highlights is the specific problems that other teams that are in a similar position in Scotland, looking specifically here at Glasgow, they have been really backwards in coming forward with what they're doing, especially for their season ticket holders, and that's caused a lot of social media backlash against the team. Bearing in mind that this is a fan base who had to wait longer than every other team in the league to finally see their team back after COVID, and there'll be fans and season ticket holders who were in the same position as the other 9 teams, had paid up front, had paid for a season that never happened, kept their money in the team, kept the business afloat in the meantime, and then they get repaid by sort of a team that isn't really thinking too quick on their feet about this. And it has to be said, it puts you in a bad light when Fife are putting something out before you on social media about how they're going to look after their fans than you are. It's harsh, and Flyers fans can come at me if you like. I'm from Fife. I've been the first one to jump down that team's throat about how quiet they are. but they did come out. They weren't the fastest. Dundee, fair play to them, were the first to come out, but Fife followed fairly quickly behind. Glasgow haven't even caught up with them yet, let alone with what Cardiff have done. So you've got to say, fair play and well done to Cardiff for what they've done.
Yeah, and before I switch over to our next story with John, Dave, I was going to say to you, and I think John was kind of alluded to one of the questions I was going to ask you. I mean, as Belfast Giants fans, I think we've been on. I think is this classic Todd Kelman here at play. When you see the offers being put out for fans, and you see the I suppose the effort that the Devils are going to. It's, for me, it felt like classic Todd Kelman.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, that fella, and we seen it whenever he redone the Giants season tickets far too long ago now, where he changed it from being a set number of games to just all home games. The Giants used to have to pay for their Challenge Cup games and all that jazz. It used to be a nightmare trying to work out which ones were in your ticket, which ones weren't, and then he came along and went all games. Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, my respect for him came whenever they
tried to run you off the road.
Well, that happened too.
I'm pretty sure. I think that was the other way around.
No, he tried to run me off the road in Dundalk. Come back from Dundalk, like he honestly was trying to drive me off the road. Not a joke. Yeah, seriously, he did. There was roadworks on the road. There was roadworks on the Dundalk to Newry road, and we were coming up, and I was not letting him in. I was refusing to let him in, and he just
you do know that because we're recording this counts as like slander. So yeah, you could end up with a lawyer's letter.
Nope, Todd can come back and say whatever he wants, but he knows deep down he tried to run me off the road. He knows.
It was all because of Marty watched them folding his tidy whities, getting his stuff washed, in the dry cleaners.
Dry cleaners that time, yeah, that's right. But I was going to say, it was the first. You remember the first skate? Winter skate sessions in the Odyssey when they first opened the Odyssey for public skates, and then when they opened it up, they went, we've just cut off like half of the. We've just like
that's right, yeah,
alienated all of the season ticket holders to sit over in over by door 14 and door 13 and stuff because they took away all of those seats, and our seats were all taken away. And then they were like, right, well, Todd came to us and was like, we're gonna offer you all the following packages, and you can make a decision yourselves. You can go and sit in a box and have a box for each game that you come to, or we'll just assign you a different seat, and we'll give you some vouchers for like drinks and merchandise and blah blah blah. So he's got history on it, and fair play to him because it's obviously the same thing happening there in Cardiff. Unfortunately, we're going to stick with COVID, but I think it's an interesting one, and John, I'm going to come to you on this one. We've had there's an interesting discussion happened this previous week from Dr. Matt Robbins, who is the Chief Medical Officer for the EIHL UK, where he was talking about the COVID-19 protocol, but also then the Elite League, I should say, or I suppose, was it the Elite League or the NHL put out their COVID protocol, but then someone within the Elite League had stated we can't publish it or something. I'll let you discuss it more.
So, the last podcast we discussed sort of the fact that so many teams were going into what was at this point this up in the air concept of a COVID protocol that the Elite League had. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what the triggers for it were. Nobody knew when it meant one player goes into protocol or when the whole team goes into protocol. We were seeing multiple organisations going into protocol, including our own Belfast Giants at this time. Spring for a week, and there was a lot of social media chatter. A couple other podcasts were mentioning this as well about what is this COVID protocol. So, the Elite League, Luke, put together a great video that we've posted up on the website, and you can find the link to it. Did a piece with Ice Hockey UK's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Matt Robbins. Matt came on and was led by Luke through the interview. Pair of them did a really good job. But I was probably the first one to, I think, notice that this had gone online, guys, and I sent this through to you, and I latched on to a particular phrase that Dr. Robbins used, and he suggested that the protocol itself was a set of guiding principles, and based on certain triggers or certain things, it would cause different actions to be taken per team on a case-by-case basis. He made the argument that a COVID protocol like this is very difficult to write down and to make public because it's continually being updated. And he used the example of saying that other leagues around the world, including, for example, the NHL, don't have a published COVID protocol. Now, I did say to you guys, and I put it out on my own personal Twitter. I didn't go for it on the podcast one. But the NHL have a published COVID protocol. It's out there. It's available. So what Dr. Robin said is actually factually incorrect.
Do you know what I loved about his statement? He said you couldn't have it written down like the Elite League's rulebook, and I had a wee chuckle to myself. Says, does he know where it is? Because I still can't find it.
Oh dear.
But it's. I mean, I think the vast majority of people have let them go on this, and to me, it's another example of us getting a half answer from the league. The other prime example is that we're not the only ones who've asked about the DOP situation and about these fines and what these fines are and how they're defined and where the money goes. We still don't know. Now, things have gone quiet because we haven't had a DOPS situation for the last possibly 3 weeks at this point. But again, this whole COVID thing, I understand it's a very fluid situation. Things are changing all the time. You've got 4 nations here where there's differing regulations, which we've just discussed. But to say that because it's a 4-nation issue makes it so complicated.
Issue in the NHL.
Exactly. And this is my point, is that the COVID protocol for the NHL is continually updated, but it is available, it's updated, and it's available for anyone, Joe Bloggs or a GM to go and read.
It's actually more complicated than you think when you think about the NHL, because their COVID laws in the United States aren't national. Yep. They're state by state. So there's 50 all of them. 51? 50?
50.
50 states.
So there's 50. There's 50. It's a 51 nation, if you like, document. It covers 51 territories, not including the different states within Canada either, or the different territories within Canada. So it's an incredibly complicated document. Yep. We have 4 countries, four executives, if you like, who make up the rules. It wouldn't be that difficult to publish that. So I don't agree with that, but fair play to them for actually putting something out, because it doesn't happen often that the Elite League comes out and publicly tries to clarify some issues.
Yeah. And I think Aaron would be a bit gutted if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, the fact that Wise's Death Star only half built.
Okay. No, he said Aaron said about it being half built, but I recently built some Lego. I had my Millennium Falcon, which was getting built over Christmas, and I've looked at these kits, and honestly, I actually think that might actually be completed, because the Lego Death Star does have gaps in it to see the different levels and stuff.
The Lego Death Star, one side is completed, and then the other side is open, so you can see the levels of the Death Star.
Oh, yep.
So I think it is completed. So I think Aaron maybe jumped down the Doctor's throat a bit quick there. So we'll defend the Doctor on that one. But sure, publish that document, guys.
Good touch having the Lego like that. He wins a few points for not having his article published.
Yep.
Guys, I'm going to move us on to our next story. And again, sticking with it's going back to something we were talking about earlier on. We were obviously talking about there's the potential, or not even the potential, that there is 100% going to be fixture congestion with more than 25 games being postponed because of the COVID-19 protocol over December and January. Those games are going to need to filter in somewhere. Obviously this week the league announced that the teams have agreed to cut the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup down to just one leg to help ease the pressure on the schedule. They also said that by doing so it solves it, and by cutting the semi-finals down it'll gain back a few dates that otherwise they wouldn't have. Now, me and John talked about this last night. It's not a lot of dates, but it's still some dates that might help. It's something. And obviously then a lot of the teams have agreed to that change, and they were thankful for that, the teams who obviously were involved. What will be interesting is that in each semi-final, the higher seeded team from the group stage will have the option of playing their games at home. So the semi-final will be played at home if the team decides they want it that way. I don't see a team that wouldn't want it. Like, I can't imagine the Giants, who are now who are top seeded from our group stage, who we know are in the semi-final, the only team we know so far in the semi-final. I can't imagine the Giants going, do you know what? No, we're going to forfeit that and we're going to play away. There's no way it's going to happen. So I mean,
listen, even without it being officially announced, so like you said, Belfast are the only team confirmed through to the semis at this point. And Lewis Hook was given an interview on Premier Sports almost immediately after the game where they'd gone through, and he basically said something around the lines of the opportunity to play the semi-final in front of home fans. So I mean, the Giants have already decided that they are absolutely playing their semi-final at home.
My two questions before you move on to our next story. John, Dave, I'll come to you first, and the first question for you will be: obviously, we talked endlessly, and we had a full section on the Challenge Cup in previous podcasts, so we know what our feelings around the Challenge Cup. It goes on too long. Blah blah. This cuts it short slightly by one game, but I mean we're looking at the semi-finals that used to be across two games, used to be an aggregated score. You know, we're going into now a game that's all the fight for in one game. One game decides it. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I was actually going to message you guys about something. So, randomly, obviously, you know, I follow the NFL as well. So the Super Bowl, 14 teams, right? They decide the Super Bowl in 13 games. How long does it take us to do the bloody Challenge Cup?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I think this is long overdue, and it really should be something we look at going forward. Yes, okay, home advantage in ice hockey has a bigger impact than it does in other sports due to how the benches are done and things like that. There, you get a short shift and all that jazz. But it's still. It needs to be done. I think it just makes logical sense, especially with the league being such the trophy means that those games that they're playing every other night mean so much more, and then you have a two-legged match, which is unheard of in ice hockey, then just happening. So they're like, you know, it's hard for players to understand. It's hard for some fans to get their head around as well because they're especially so used to things like overtime and all that jazz.
It's not difficult for the GMs though, and this is the problem. They want the shared gate. So I can only expect that the semi-finals, whatever teams end up playing against each other, there will be some kind of arrangement for a shared gate on those games. It has to be, because the lower seed is absolutely going to lose out on money.
Are you Sorry, John, I was going to say, are you reading my notes? Because my question to you, that was my second question. My second question to you was going to be, you know, John, two gates usually is what happens. One team is going to lose out. How do you think they're going to solve that? So go ahead.
Yep. So, look, it's going to have to be a shared gate. And, look, we're in a position that right now, if I remember the first round, or the first games accurately, Dundee are currently leading Cardiff by, I think, a 2-goal lead. I think it's 4-2 from the first game. And they will play the decider next week, I believe, next Wednesday. Fife are pretty much out at this point. Steelers put a 5-1 result past them yesterday in the first game of theirs. So, I mean, they're away. But if you're Dundee, and you're potentially going to look to be seeded against, let's say, a Nottingham or a Belfast, you have that opportunity to potentially, through current restrictions, earn yourself a fair bit of cash. Because if you're going to split the gate with Belfast, who can potentially, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but potentially sell out a game, that's more than you're going to get for having 200 fans in the arena. So there's an opportunity here. Not to say there's not an opportunity for Fife. Like, Fife could go and have a result against Sheffield in Fife, the way that we've just had a result against Coventry in the second game. We went in with the deficit and we absolutely hammered them. It would be great to see Sheffield crash out after a 5-1 win at home like that, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's got to be a shared gate. That's the only way it can work, and I assume that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, unfortunately, we will never find out, probably because they probably will never state what they're doing. But yeah, we'll guess that's what's going to happen. Taking us to our last story for this period, John, this is one that you put up, and it's obviously involving the Leeds Knights and potentially, well, rumours, I suppose, only rumours at this point. Potential move to an elite league team, maybe as a caretaker coach or caretaker.
Yeah, so. Look, we know the position that Nottingham are in. Tim Wallace was relieved of duties after a run of fairly poor results. There's a caretaker. The assistant coach there is now sitting in as the caretaker coach currently. Now, there's been no other announcement has come out. I believe their captain is on long-term injured, so he's acting as a backup bench coach as well for them. But you've now got a position where a name that at least us in Belfast we're all too familiar with, in Dave Whistle, has just in the last, in fact, let me check, yesterday, in fact, has left his role as general manager and head coach with the Leeds Knights. This is more interesting, of course, because there is currently a full-time vacancy within the Elite League. Dave has Elite League experience, of course, from the Belfast Giants, but he's got a whole host of experience from elsewhere as well. Head coach in a lot of different teams in a lot of different leagues. At this point in the season, I find it unusual for someone like Dave to be leaving a team in the position that they are if he doesn't have something ready to go. And this has been it's not a massive rumour right now. I think it would be an unusual move for Nottingham as well. We've spoken a little bit about it, and there is a lot wrong in Nottingham. A lot of chat online that maybe the wrong person has gone in Nottingham. A lot of people pointing a finger at Guy Doucet as the primary researcher and hirer for that team in Nottingham currently, who are massively underperforming. Tim Wallace could only do what he could with what he was given, is the reality. But is it too far of a stretch to expect that? Are we going to see an announcement at some point in the next few days that Dave Whistle is going to pull up the car outside of the Motorpoint Arena in Nottingham?
Well, you never know. Stranger things have happened. The only thing I will just because I know a few boys, especially maybe the View from the Bridge boys, probably silently screaming if they're listening to any part of this, where John said that the history, the Dave Whistle with his history with the Elite Ice Hockey League. I think we'll rephrase that with the Giants, and it's the Super League. I believe he's synonymous with. That's the only thing, and I'm just saying it because I know there's a few people out there who'd be like, "Oh, he's got it," so Super League. But yeah, I agree, John. I mean, is it just are we just putting one and one together and coming up with like three? Are we just kind of guessing that that's what's going to happen, or it's an educated guess? It could just be a coincidence, but I would say the likelihood is that he might pop up. And I think you're right. I think if there's an option for someone with as much history and experience as Dave Whistle who's available, the Panthers, I would say, would probably be jumping at that to kind of maybe look at this.
Well, that's one thing, actually. Like, say you're in that position, say you've got an assistant coach who's already in there and you've put them in as caretaker, but you have someone with the experience of Dave Whistle. Do you look to bring him in now? And do you hope that he can salvage something from this season, or do you just take this season as a write-off?
I would say bring him in now. Hope that he keeps them either in the run of form that they're in, keeps them, gets them a bit better form. Make sure they're there for the playoff. Coming into the playoffs, making sure that if they go into that playoff game, those quarterfinal games in the playoffs, that they get a chance to actually win a quarterfinal playoff game. There's so much that they have to think about coming towards the end of their season and how do they salvage the end of their season. I think it's an option for them.
Yep, definitely.
Guys, if there's nothing else
just something on the Dave Whistle before we move on. Just something I noticed on one of the threads on Facebook. Allegedly, it was the end of a 6-month review at Leeds, so it may have been on the cards. Allegedly, the owner wanted him to move into only a general manager role and wanted him to hire a coach where he felt more comfortable being a coach. And then he made the decision at that stage that it wasn't for him. He didn't want to take the step away from the ice. He maybe didn't feel comfortable as a general manager and wanted to stay as a head coach role. But that's what was on Facebook. None of it, it's all allegedly. Obviously, there's not any more to the statement than what we have.
And as I say, it could just all be coincidental that that's happened at the same time as things are changing in Nottingham. So I'm sure by the time we come back to recording in 2 weeks' time, things will maybe have revealed themselves. So we'll keep an eye on that, and obviously we will report back in 2 weeks' time if that does change. Okay, I'm going to round off period 1 and leave it there, and I'll get us I'll switch over to Dave for our period 2 of hockey.
Hello, and welcome to Period 2, where we continue to talk about Evander Kane. As we know,
Week 36 in the Goal 14 Hockey Podcast. The team are still talking about Evander Kane.
very good, like that one.
For anybody who isn't up with their pop culture from the early 2000s, that's Big Brother, which was a TV show, reality TV show.
Might have just shown our age there a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So, as we know, Evander Kane, I don't actually know, was he put on unrestricted waivers?
Yeah.
As
So
of the
I threw this up. So this last sort of 10 days has been just again another showing of the Evander Kane show. So the Sharks decided, having had basically either no approaches or no proper approaches while Kane was on as an RFA, on restricted waivers, the team made the decision following the revelation that he had breached the NHL COVID protocol and potentially broken Canadian law by travelling with the team to Canada whilst still under the COVID protocol, having tested positive. This all then came down to the Sharks thinking, right, this guy's just done. We can't give him a 64th second chance, so we're going to put him on unrestricted waivers. So they let him know. They told the Players Association as well, and he was put on unrestricted waivers with the idea to cancel his contract. So this means that this is a material breach of contract, which means that they can get rid of him and they don't have to pay whatever's left on his contract, therefore saving money in the cap. He was put on unrestricted waivers, and there have been, I mean, Marty, you and me spoke about it last night. There were a lot of rumours that were going round. A lot of teams were potentially looking at this guy. To name just a few, Nashville were potentially looking at him. Edmonton were potentially very, very close to signing him, as much as potentially yesterday may still have been signing him. Marty, your Leafs were mentioned very, very prominently as a team that were looking at him.
Yeah, they were one of the first names that were dropped for it. Yeah.
Both Florida teams apparently were looking at him quite a lot. Now, it turns out, or so we're told online, is that he'd only interviewed with one team, and that was Edmonton. Connor McDavid, I don't know if you guys have seen online, Connor McDavid was asked questions about Kane potentially coming into the lineup, and he put his social media training to full use and basically said nothing for or against the whole situation. However, it doesn't matter at this point, because once again, Evander Kane is under investigation by the NHL. As we know, he was investigated last year for we're not going to go back through it again, but for potentially very serious charges that were being brought against him as a private individual. Yet again, the NHL will be investigating his crossing the US border into Canada on December the 29th, during which time he should have been on the COVID protocol. Clearly he did not have the proper medical clearance. This has meant that the NHL has blocked any potential signings of Kane, because if he's found to have been a material breach of any of these protocols, I believe that will make him completely ineligible as a player and will effectively end his career. The saga continues.
And this is his third investigation from the NHL, because remember he made the fake COVID passport, which I think is hilarious considering he then he got COVID. So,
I mean,
I still say I chance to take him. I take him in the chance.
I mean, it's just
he doesn't have the medical clearance.
He doesn't. Well, he can fake that easily. It's okay.
Me have COVID pass.
Yeah, it's just like it's at this point it does become a bit of a joke, and we talked about it. We joke around that we've got Evander watch, but we talk about him so much. We give him so much airtime on this show because he keeps doing things. He just keeps giving his
gift. He keeps on giving.
He just keeps giving us content, which is great. But yeah, it's just too much, way too much, and yeah, I just think I hope from a Toronto fan point of view, I hope they don't pull the trigger and go for him. I really don't want to see it.
Seconded.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I jest about him, coming the Giants, but I don't think I would really want them in the wild, So it's I don't think I think he just would bring far too much baggage. Maybe in a year, if you went to like a farm team for a year, and you say went to Iowa for the Wilds, and stayed there for a full year, and then came up next year, maybe. But
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is willing to take him straight into the NHL. And obviously he might not even be allowed to. But yeah. All right. Well, what we'll do is, where are we going? Aaron's points. I'm saying, Aaron's not here. So if anybody doesn't know,
yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, we have a running order which we use to keep track of all our stories, and we all put in something apart from me, who wings it every episode. But Aaron was up at 6 o'clock this morning pinging us about topics, because he's really busy at 6 o'clock in the morning, sitting talking to himself. So he put in a few points. Who would like to?
I honestly, this morning when I woke up this morning, I looked at my phone and I seen honestly there was like quite a few messages in our WhatsApp group this morning, and I thought, God, these boys are up early having a chat like at this time of the morning. And then when I looked and I seen it was just basically Aaron having a conversation with himself in the chat, it actually made me laugh. I was like, oh, he's actually having a conversation with himself. He's asking questions and answering his own questions in the conversation.
Listen, if you were in that position. If you were in his position, as Dave has been, of getting ready to move house, and there's a small kid or kids in the house as well, I'm sure he doesn't know whether he's coming or going at this point.
True.
It's a random one with kids. I used to sit and watch the games, and I can remember sitting watching the game, getting really into it, only to find out at the end of it was a flipping rerun from the week before.
Oh, John, you've got a list to look forward to.
Can't wait.
Guys, I can run through Aaron's stories if you want, or
that would be perfect if you wanna fly through them, and then we'll end with your actual official one as a bit of good news or a nice piece.
Yep, the first one then is obviously as of our last recording, just around our last recording actually, and I think we missed it. It's just because I think this came out around about the same day as we recorded the podcast. The NHL did announce just at the end of December, start of January, that they are going to shorten the isolation period for COVID, for anybody who does test positive for COVID-19. They have shortened that down from what used to be 10 days to 5 days instead now, which kind of comes into what we just talked about with Evander Kane. Obviously, there was a protocol in place there around the COVID protocols, and he fell short of it because this change to the rules, or this change to the protocol came in after he tested positive. But the updated protocols,
the day he came back from Canada,
the day he travelled to Canada, the league changed this, hadn't enacted it yet, and it's just perfect comedic timing.
So what the NHL have said is they did modify the COVID-19 protocols to shorten the isolation period under the guidance from the CDC. Players will be allowed to leave isolation after 5 days if they produce a negative test and are asymptomatic. After that, players are required to wear a mask for 5 additional days, except while on the ice for practices or for games. The NHL did stipulate, though, that the new guidance applies only if approved by local health authorities. So what I think they mean by that is depending on if they are going to Canada, depending if they are going to from state to state, because obviously we know certain states have different stipulations in relation to what they want to happen. They will have to follow the guidance there. So if there is a guidance where it says actually we want you to isolate for 10 days, then that will still be
it is
in place.
it is worth
That's
noting
what happens when it comes for Canada.
Yeah, we joke about the whole Evander Kane thing, but the rule does not change for players traveling to Canada. No. It's still 10 days.
Yeah, we should just to make that clear that that's what it is.
And also the of entering a country when COVID positive is also another issue with Evander Kane. So.
Well, this is my whole thing with it. I don't want to go back over the Evander Kane stuff again, but this is the second time that he has broken a country's laws surrounding COVID.
Yep.
He somehow got away with the fraudulent COVID pass, which clearly, I don't know whether he's got criminal charges against him for that one, but there's been nothing talked about it. And then he's broken Canadian law by coming in with the team and clearly, sneaking through the corners while everyone else is getting their paperwork looked at. Here comes Evander Kane kind of sneaking through, going, oh no,
he just showed his wee fake passport.
Yeah, I don't have COVID.
Well, if he faked a passport, I'm sure he could allegedly fake a passport. I don't think I can really say that.
Yeah, okay, let's be careful.
Allegedly, because obviously we're talking about him enough. He might listen at some point. Laws of average. If we do 200 of these, he might listen to one of them.
If you listen to these guys from Belfast, they just keep talking about you.
If he comes on, I'll
Anyway.
just say all's forgiven.
Yeah. It's an excellent fraud. Alleged. It's an excellent alleged fraud.
They talk about you a lot, but they're quite supportive. Guys, I'm going to go into Aaron's next story. So his next story actually is a callback to a story we did have earlier in the season, and this is obviously revolving around, I suppose, the Arizona Coyotes. It's just going from worse to worse for those guys. I mean, we talked in a previous podcast about the fact that the Coyotes are attempting to stay within their current facility. They owed money, quite a significant amount of money, as unpaid bills towards the arena, which they were able to go, we didn't realize we hadn't paid it. Look, here's a check that covers everything. Great. But I mean, it's ongoing. There is, at the moment, there is a vote going through with the city council, Tampa City Council, to approve projects for, obviously what's going to happen, proposals in terms of the use of the arena, and there's supposedly votes are against the Coyotes.
Oh, it's not even. So I've gone through this in great detail because I'm loving what's going on with the Coyotes just now, because it's
you take over.
It's a complete cluster. So after we talked about the unpaid bills, it now comes to a head that they had agreed to pay all of their outstanding bills by the 10th of December. They didn't. It took them another 10 days to pay their outstanding bills to the city of Tempe. Again, they were saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry." It's like there was an online post, an online thing that said, "We've paid it," and then the city council went, "No, you haven't." It's like, we're gonna notice when this comes into the bank account, guys.
It's a lot of money.
It's not a tenner. Like, you didn't buy us a beer. You haven't paid your city taxes for years. We're gonna see this. It took them another 10 days. So Tempe City Council are absolutely livid with them. They've had to go back and forward to the NHL, and there's all this brewing on in the background. This is for their existing home. The team have an application in with the city and with Arizona for the building of a brand new $1.7 billion facility to go into Tempe. To say that the city council are not quite on their side is a bit of an understatement. They have to get, I believe, out of 7 votes, they have to at least get 4 votes for on this one. There are, at the minute, a reported 2 who have absolutely said yes. They will grant it. They just want to keep hockey in Arizona, in Tempe. 3 have already said no. They have gone public and said that they will not be supporting it. That leaves 2 undecided. All they need is 1 to go against them. And all of this has come at the same time as the revelations of their unpaid tax bill having gone continually unpaid for another 10 days. I can't see this ending well. This is not a team that are going to stay in Arizona. This is a team that can't even sort out their finances when their parents, the NHL, and Gary Bettman has to be brought in by a city council to try and pay their bills for them. This is a disastrous franchise.
It was always a weird decision whenever they were, being there has always been a strange one. It never seemed to be a logical place for a hockey team. Because places that are a bit vague, Nashville, for example, that you're going, oh, maybe not hockey, they have really sort of bought into it and made a big deal about it, where you don't really hear about the same thing in Arizona or Phoenix or whatever they're called these days. There's not that teams that are in non-hockey markets usually put a big push in, like Florida, the Lightning and Panthers. They do a lot of work to drum up, and when you think of them, when you think of the Tampa Bay, well, they've won the Stanley Cup, for example, you think that there's a lot of possibilities there, but when you hear the Coyotes, you're like, oh, they're still around. It's desperate.
Sorry, let me clarify something that I said earlier on. I misinterpreted the votes. So at the minute there are 3 yes votes, 2 no votes, and two votes that are undecided but are leaning towards no at this point, following the recent revelations of the unpaid taxes and bills that came to light. Now, to point out, the next Tempe City Council meeting is set for today, Thursday, at 5 p.m. local time. So by the time this airs, there could well have been a decision made, and these undecided votes could have cast their votes. So we could know by the next podcast whether or not hockey stays in Arizona.
I mean, guys, if hockey doesn't stay in Arizona, do they look to move the franchise like they've done previously? Move it for next? Do they have time to move it by next season? Is it Arizona pull out for next season? What's going to happen? But I guess
Quebec are ready. Quebec are ready. Quebec
Kansas City
ready.
also have a big push. A move is a hell of a lot easier than a expansion.
Come out.
You can move.
Yeah.
They should be able. Like, there's look at the Raiders in NFL. Sure, they moved from Oakland to Vegas there this season, and they're just on the off season. So if it's just a matter of packing up the vans and moving it down the road, then it should be doable. It's whenever you have to do it from scratch is the problem. So there's only.
I can't imagine. It will be a rebrand though, because you can't imagine the Quebec Coyotes.
Well, you can do it for a season until you can.
That's a frozen dead animal. That's what
Kansas,
that is.
The Kansas Coyotes. Did you just say Kansas was an option as well?
Kansas City's another place that's pushing for an NFL team or an NHL team.
There you go. Okay. Dave, I'll go on with my last story. Is that all right?
Yes, that's the one I'm looking forward to.
Perfect. Here in the UK, we have this week. We've been talking. We talked during the period one around this week and this coming weekend is our Pride or Hockey is for Everyone weekend, depending on which way you wanted to tailor it. Some teams in the Elite League are targeting as hockey is for everyone in keeping with the NHL's phrasing and the NHL's branding, I suppose, of a similar nature. And some teams are advertising it as a quality game or the Pride weekend. No matter what you want to look at, it's Pride, and the rainbow colours are going to be flying proudly this coming weekend. But this past weekend, the weekend of January, what is it, 10th? No, January 8th, the Kalamazoo Wings from the Kalamazoo Wings had their Pride weekend in the ECHL, but their Pride weekend they went one step beyond, and they turned the neutral zone and half of the offensive zone into a I suppose half of the defensive zone too, into a full rainbow, having painted the ice and having rainbow coloured ice. So the bottom layer of the rink was dyed, I suppose, to rainbow colours, and it was a thing of. I don't know your take. I don't know your guys' take on it, but I don't know if you've seen any of the video action. When you see the players flying down the ice, it looks phenomenal in my opinion. But it's going that one step, taking that one step further, and showing their commitment to equality, I suppose, and also hockey is for everyone. I mean, these guys have had. Let's make it clear. These guys, the Wings organization, are known for promotions. They've done the green ice for St. Patrick's Day. They did orange ice for Halloween. They've done pink ice for the breast cancer awareness weekends, and they've done lavender for Hockey Fights Cancer Nights. I mean, I think it's. Yeah, I mean, again, just in keeping with tradition, I suppose they went. I'm really impressed, I suppose, with just how vibrant the colours were, and the fact that we're able to get the 6 separate colours to stand out exactly the way they should be. I guess Dave, your thoughts. I mean,
I absolutely loved it. I just think it's a statement, and it must have looked, because the games the ECHL are televised locally as well, and it's just such a vibrant thing to see, and they're just making a statement that they're saying it is for everybody, and there's and how much equality means to their organization. I think it's fantastic. Did you see their jerseys?
Yeah, I did.
That's just what I was gonna. I was gonna say that as well. Like, when you combine the ice is a huge statement piece, and there's no getting away from it. Like that, it is in their blood. It is in that organisation's blood to use the ice to make a statement, and that definitely makes a statement. But we love jerseys here, and like we are later on, we're going to talk about jerseys a little bit, and these are cracker. Hockey's for everyone pride coloured jerseys, and yeah, they're fantastic. You put the two things together, it's a clear statement from that organisation, and it's fantastic to see.
Dave, that's me, because my next question, again, the other question I had, he's preempted it. It was about the jersey, so there we go. You're in my head, you know exactly where I'm going. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I think it's our 6-year anniversary doing the podcast. We should really know what we're doing by now. All right. If that is the last piece, we will move swiftly on to period 3.
Period 3 then is our general Knocky news. Knocky news then is where we discuss anything and everything else in the world of hockey that we feel needs attention brought to it. Guys, unfortunately, we have a sad story to start with, and I think it's important that we do start period 3 with this story. Marty, this was the sad story coming out of Connecticut with the unfortunate passing of a young player.
Yeah. This past week, a young player called Teddy Balkind, Connecticut teenager who died such tragic circumstances on the ice. He is a Brunswick School varsity team, and he was in a college preparatory school for boys in Greenwich, St. Luke's School. It's a private co-educational school. During the game, Balkin fell on the ice, and a player of the other team was unable to stop and unfortunately collided with him, cutting Balkin's neck with a skate blade. Balkin was treated by Brunswick medical staff and was transported to the local hospital, but tragically he didn't survive the operation. No matter what they tried to try and keep the young man alive, they were unable to do so. Officials then had to announce that his death happened shortly after arriving at the hospital. I mean, it's tragic. You can't imagine what parents, family, friends, this young man who obviously was the person who couldn't stop. You know, we think about everything. We think about how young these kids are, and just how impactful this will be and how tough it's going to be for everyone that's involved with this. The NHL, everyone right across the world. A hashtag started trending, and that's how I seen this story. Was a hashtag started called "Sticks Out for Teddy." The NHL put out a statement to say that the NHL mourns the passing of Teddy Balkind. A member of the hockey family lost too soon. Prayers are with friends and family and all of the teammates at St. Luke's. I mean, guys, there's not much more you can say about it. It's just such a tragic story. It's such a tragic incident to happen. Wherever you are across the world, whatever the tradition is within your local area in terms of hockey, be that a stick tap, be that a moment silence, be that loud applause for a minute, whatever that might be, everybody should be thinking about this young man and the tragic circumstances that happened for this young lad. But we felt it was important, obviously, to talk about the story because it was one of the leading stories this week, and it was across everywhere. Mainstream media had picked this up and were talking about it, so we felt it was only right to include it and note it, and also send our condolences for what they're worth from the team here at Door 14 to anybody who's been affected by this tragedy.
Yep, absolutely. Just to mirror everything that you've said, Marty, our heartfelt condolences do go out to Teddy's friends, family, and to his teammates as well at what is going to be an incredibly difficult time. Guys, a slightly nicer story came out over the Christmas period as well. This was the story of the Habs, or sorry, not the Habs, the Vancouver Canucks assistant equipment manager. At the start of the season, he was in Seattle for Seattle's first home game in franchise history. And he was doing his job during the game, sorting out equipment between plays and during play and everything else. A young woman was sitting in the stands, just right behind the Vancouver bench. Nadia Popovici was sat just there. She noticed something on Brian's neck. Brian Hamilton is the assistant equipment manager for the Canucks. Noticed something on his neck, and with a small amount of medical training that she had at this point, she's a medical student, she had concerns about what she could see and thought that there was something that he had to have checked out. So she wrote a message on her phone and started banging the glass to get his attention, and just left a message up saying, I think the mole on your neck is cancerous and it needs to be checked out. This was obviously back in October, just about the week before Christmas. Am I right? Or the week of Christmas, maybe actually. The Canucks, Brian Hamilton put out a message through the team saying that he had this checked out. It was cancerous, but because of the message that Nadia put out, they got it in time, and he's well on the road to a full recovery and get to spend time with his friends and family through that. Marty, this then went all the way through to the next game. They were hunting for Nadia through it all, and then both teams have made an absolutely fantastic gesture for her.
Yeah, I mean, the teams, as you say, they put out a national hunt, shall we call it, because that's what they eventually did. I suppose what happened was Hamilton wanted to obviously find this person, wanted to thank this person who saved his life, who he called a hero, called his hero, his personal hero, his lifesaver, and they put out the Canucks tweeted out an appeal to find the fan before they returned to play in Seattle at the Climate Pledge Arena on the 1st of January. The tweet kind of that went out was it was a big enough tweet, and it just came. It was basically stated that we're on the lookout for a young female, a female fan who was able to help our assistant equipment manager Brian Hamilton discover, save his life, kind of thing. If you have any information about who this young lady was, please let us know. Please get in touch. Please, kind of get us involved with whoever it is. Thankfully, through the power of social media and through obviously linking in, they were able to identify who that person was, and were able to connect them with were able to connect Nadia back with Brian and the team, and she is an aspiring medical student. So both teams, both teams were able, Vancouver and also Seattle, joined forces and have decided to award her a scholarship of $10,000 towards her medical education, as a thank you, and as a gesture to say, as a wonderful experience, as the wonderful thing that she done. So again, stick taps to in a different way. Stick tap to Nadia for her use of bit of knowledge that she had, but also for saving the day as a hero for Brian.
Yep, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Fantastic and great story. Right, so this is Knocky News, guys, and this is the story. These are the stories that we like covering in Knocky News. This is stuff that doesn't fit into period 1 or 2, and this is a prime example. I alluded earlier on to the fact that Florida is...
Sorry, John, can I just, before you go in further, can I just preface this, okay? As the host of this podcast, okay, I'm going to ask, it's usually a family podcast, so think about your words when you're introducing this story.
Oh, don't worry, I'll think about them, but I'll still use them.
Okay. Go.
So, this last weekend, in Florida, the Panthers were, I don't know who the Panthers were playing. It doesn't really matter at this point with this story. The Florida Panthers were playing a game at home somewhere. And right next to the media box, a number of fans noticed something unusual was happening just to the left of the journalists. It turns out that US rapper Kodak Black was putting on a what looked to be a very different kind of show in the private box that he'd been put into. There were allegations were made online. There were insinuations, in fact, were made online. all of which had to be rescinded upon receival of a different angle of the incident, let's call it, was received, in which it appears that there was no foul play. Now, I'm using DOPS language here, guys, because I don't know if you noticed the other link I've put up since we started, and I've labelled it DOPS in our running order. A fan has posted online. I'm going to give him a shout out for it because it's absolutely fantastic. Mike Westlake on Twitter, at Mike Westlake, has produced a DOPS video, an NHL Department of Player Safety video, breaking. Now, I'm going to use his words here, okay? This is a breakdown of an illegal hit from behind play in Florida. The video is absolutely brilliant. Now, I'll caveat that with the fact that I haven't been able to listen to the audio yet, but just the video and the fact that he uses the same sort of shadowing out and highlighting bubble as the NHL Department of Player Safety uses, and then almost a complete carbon copy of the normal graphics as well for the roundup at the end. It's absolutely fantastic. Like you say, Marty, it's a family show. We will put the links to this up on our website. Guys, any reaction to what you see in the videos?
Well,
who's Kodak Black?
And yet again, for the second time this podcast, we have aged ourselves.
Yeah, it sounds like the camera that you'd have thrown in the bin when you were finished using it. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know who he is either. I'm not into my rap, so maybe we'll ask my nephew. He seems to be a rap fan at the moment. He's going to see a rapper called Dave, who I didn't know was a rapper either. So there you go.
Dave.
What not you, not you. But I suppose my take on it is, Kodak Black was just dancing. He was just having a bit of an innocent dance in the box. It was construed as something else.
I don't dance like that.
It didn't help that Kodak Black may have went on Instagram Live.
I do, but not in arenas.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's a different kind of arena show right there.
Oh god.
You pay extra for that sort of thing.
You do. You normally would.
So yes, Kodak Black was just dancing, but it didn't help that he did put on his Instagram Live, putting the enchilada in the piñata. It didn't help. It didn't help. So we'll leave it at that. As you say, John, we'll add the story onto our...
We can only suggest watching these videos if you need clarity on what's going on. And let's be honest, when we all saw these videos coming online, we all needed clarity on what was going on. Guys, that rounds off Noggy News. I'm glad to say that rounds it off on a bit of a higher note. And it takes us on to the star segment. So last time around, we decided to take the podcast off as far as the star segment was concerned. There hadn't been really a lot was going on. COVID was causing a lot of problems across every league around the world. But we're back this time around. Marty, I am going to come to you for your nomination this time around because it's someone that we've already spoken about. And no, it's not Evander Kane.
No, my star for this was a kind of an easy one for me, and I kind of felt it was a bit of a cheap ad. But my ad for this one is Nadia from our previous story. I just feel that that is a fantastic news story. While it may not be a player, while it may not be a certain play, this lady deserves all the stick taps and deserves noticed what she has done for this man and saving this Brian's life. So that's my star for this episode.
Absolutely, brilliant pull, brilliant nomination. Can't argue with that one. Dave, I saw you panically typing away there, and I see on the running order a name has finally popped up at the last minute in your nomination. So tell us who you've gone for and why.
I don't know what you're talking about. 100% prepared. That's been there the whole time. So I went with Jackson Whistle, and Marty, you'll know why. We had a chat about it during the last game we were at. I have to say, this is more just Jackson Whistle overall this season so far, rather than just the last game. Bear in mind, the last game he was in was fantastic also. He has came a long way from when he first played for the Giants, and then he went off. He's recovered from his surgery phenomenally well. that he had after he left the Giants, and he is really, in my opinion, is growing into what will possibly be one of the best Great Britain starters of the modern time. I think that he'll quickly overtake Ben Bounds as Ben Bounds gets slightly older and maybe starts playing in more leagues that won't afford him time to get back to GB as often. And I think Jackson Wiss will make big steps forward, and he's only getting better with every game he plays. And at the Giants, he's now getting fairly regular ice time, which is doing wonders for his ability. And you can see it in his stats. I think he's probably going to be the netminder to watch, and I think he's going to be fantastic if he stays with the Giants. He'll be fantastic for the Giants as an organization, and I think and vice versa. It'll be good for him also. So that's
Awesome.
my pick.
Okay. Guys, this time around, I'm also staying close to home. I'm staying to Belfast, and this is literally off the back of last night's game, last night's Challenge Cup game against the Coventry Blaze, and I'm going for Belfast Giants' own Lewis Hook. Just for a goal that was inconsequential as far as the result went, but the last goal, the fifth goal on the night, and it's simply because it's a goal that shouldn't have happened. I don't know if you guys saw me tweet, and Marty, you'll know what I'm talking about when I start describing the play. So at the end of the game, the Belfast Giants were on a penalty kill. They were short-handed, and they were going to be short-handed to end the game. The Coventry Blaze pulled their netminder and went 6-on-4. The Giants won the puck off the face-off in their own zone, fired it down the end, and the referee blew the whistle and called icing. Now, immediately they knew that this was a problem, but of course, what could have been a play to set up an empty net goal was gone, and CJ Mott was allowed back into the nets. But it didn't matter. The referees took the puck to centre ice, and Lewis Hook went through everyone and delivered himself a short-handed goal off his own rebound, off CJ Mott. So actually, it didn't even matter that Mott got back in goal, because we still managed to score short-handed on him at the end of the day. But it was a brilliantly worked goal, and just for the fact that it was a goal against the goalie in nets that shouldn't have been, the situation should never have arose at the end of that game for CJ to be back in nets, but he still scored the goal. For that goal alone, Lewis Hook, don't get me wrong as well, he's been playing absolutely fantastic recently, and I think he's one of the standouts of the team this year, outside of the top line. But yeah, for that alone, Lewis Hook gets my nomination. So, with that gives us our 3 nominations. I'll rattle through them again. So, Marty, you've gone for Nadia Popovici, the hero of Vancouver's assistant equipment manager. Sorry, tripping over my own words there. Dave, you've gone for Jackson Whistle, and I have gone for Lewis Hook. I'll do my best to put the vote up this time on time. Hopefully it won't be a panic 24-hour thing. But Marty, that takes us on to overtime.
It does indeed. So our overtime segment is the last part of our episode, where we just kind of cover off anything else that has came to our attention in the world of hockey, be that from our listeners who have sent in any Twitter questions that may have come in. I don't think there is anything this week, or if there's anything else we just kind of want to finish our episode on. And guys, one thing I did want to finish our episode on is, given the fact that it is the Elite League Pride Week, and we are coming up to the Belfast Giants Pride game this coming weekend. Well, today, if you're listening to the episode, then we have obviously our favorite topic gets to come in, and it's not that we're going to pit them against each other and decide on who has the best one, because that's not what this is about. We're supposed to be looking at it as a quality thing. We're supposed to be looking at it as from a point of view of like everybody's doing their part for this. But we have a number of jerseys have been released, obviously, for this coming weekend. Every team that I could find, apart from the only team that hasn't released anything yet from a point of view for Pride Weekend, is the Cardiff Devils. There's nothing being put out on their social medias or their social channels highlighting anything to do with Pride Weekend or their jersey for this coming weekend. If they're going to be having a Pride game or not, I don't know. Apologies to Cardiff if they have and we've just missed it out on it, but we looked around today to see if we could find anything, and there's been nothing anywhere. We couldn't find anything, so maybe they'll come out in the next few days and explain maybe reasons why they haven't done anything yet. But we'll go ahead anyway with what we have got and what we have seen. I suppose it's a simple question. I'm going to put it to you guys. Have you? First off, I've put them all together. I put them all on our shared drive. Has everyone had a chance to look at all of the jerseys together? I think someone did open a presentation. And I think it's all a presentation thing. I don't know. Can't see that. But guys, Dave, coming to you first. Out of we've got 9 jerseys in front of us. All teams represented apart from Cardiff. Which jersey for you do you think stands out most? Which one do you think is your favourite?
I would say most improved. I'll do this one here. The Giants are the most improved jersey. Last year's jersey was a bit of weak sauce. It was a bit meh. But my favourite is actually the Fife Flyers. I think they've done something different. They've made a bit more of a overall effort with the silhouettes. Love is love, I think it says on it.
Yep.
Which I think is class. And I think it's a class look. And the logo again, they've really went all out to put the colour on, more so than some, not as much as others, because obviously the Blaze are just saturated in the rainbow, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, and so are the Clan. So I would say most improved, Giants, best jersey, Fife.
Great. John, same question to you. Out of the 9 jerseys we're looking at, which one do you feel stands out most for you? Which one do you like the most?
Amazingly, I'm going to highlight the same two, but in different respects. Okay. Talking about the Fife jersey, I absolutely love it. It is something entirely different. The one thing I'll point out on it, that whether or not this comes to pass, I just want to point this out. If you've noticed that there's no sponsors, it's a sponsor-free jersey. Now, whether or not that is what hits the ice, I don't know. This is obviously a production image that we're looking at from Crosscheck, who are producing these for, I believe, Fife and maybe 1 or 2 other teams as well this season. It's an outstanding jersey, and Dave's right, it's the small details that makes this jersey. The love is love sublimated behind the black that is the block colour of the jersey, and the other one that I love is the hockey is for everyone inside the collar. I love those. I love those little details being put in there. But if I'm talking about my favourite jersey, it's got to be the Giants one this season. My key reason being, they've simplified things a lot. Now, the logos, the sponsors are still on there. Okay, that's fine. But you know what it reminds me of? Remember years ago, and they still do it now. Remember when Skittles started doing their Pride packaging, and they said that they were giving up the rainbow for Pride? That is almost exactly what's happened here. The team colours are gone. We've already seen with the Challenge Cup jersey, it's been really popular because the colours have in the logos and things have been left to one side. It's a very clean white logo. It's white sponsors that are on this. What makes it pop then is the rainbow, and you've got the messaging within that. In the land of the Giants, everyone is equal. It's a line that I fully respect, and I've had potentially problems with the way that the line has been used previously, because I've not agreed with the way in which it's been used. This is the way that it should be used, and I absolutely love the way that it's been done this season. That is a jersey that, come tomorrow night in the SSE, I will be dropping a couple of quid on short off the backs for that.
Yeah, I would be. I'm agreeing with you, with both of you, in terms of the Belfast Giants one. It's definitely, compared to last year's. We had our conversation about this around us last year, and everybody had different opinions on last year's jersey. We had different fans thinking that the jersey last year was enough, that that's what they need to do. We had fans who kind of similar ideas to ourselves, felt that there wasn't enough given, or it felt like that they kind of maybe cheapened out and for some reason didn't put their what would be looked at as their name, as in like the logo. They didn't associate the logo with the Pride movement, and it was kind of a strange decision to do last year. But you're right, the message is still there. The In the Land of the Giants is still there. That message is still clear, but this year they've used the rainbow to emphasize it. Now, the Giants one isn't my favorite one. Fife is a notable one that I do like. I agree with you, Dave, and John. The Fife one has great subtle little things.
Can I guess at where you might be going?
Yes.
Because I think I know where you might be going, and I think it's going to be Manchester.
No.
Oh wow, okay.
No. So my choice, controversial choice in some ways. People will be like, "What? You're doing what?" And it's because of something you just said there, John. And this is exactly what I thought of when I seen this jersey, and it's exactly what you said. So we have obviously the Nottingham Panthers jersey just down here in the bottom. When we're looking at our screen, we have the Nottingham Panthers jersey. The Nottingham Panthers, for me, the jersey looks plain. It looks white. They've pulled out. There's no Nottingham color. There's Nottingham's logos on it. Yes. There's no gold or yellow or whatever they call it, mustard, whatever they want to call it. Nottingham's colours aren't on it anywhere. It's white. They've put on, and I've never seen a Nottingham jersey this clear, this clean, this devoid of their own branding and own colours. And they have the rainbow clearly running down both sleeves, and they have the hockey is for everyone. Hockey is for everyone in rainbow colours running along the bottom as well. And I think it's clean. It's a clean jersey. They've done exactly as you said, John. It's kind of that Skittles idea where they've took away their own branding, they've took out their own colours, and they're slowly going with the rainbow colours. And for me, it stands out as one of the best jerseys there. And I just think it looks clean. And again, exactly as you said with the Fife one, I see very little to no sponsorship on that jersey for a big team. And if this is the jersey that they're going to go out with this weekend, if they're playing in this jersey, this is their big team. This is an arena team that aren't going to be putting sponsorship on their jerseys. And you look at Sheffield, who've got sponsorship on their jersey, and the Giants, who have sponsorship on their jersey. And that's fine. And it's fine. It brings in, and it's part of an agreement they've made with their sponsorships. But if Nottingham go with this and don't have sponsorships on the jersey, and this is the jersey that runs out, fair play to Nottingham, because I think it's a great jersey.
Fair play. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. So,
I'm surprised. I'll give one other shout out, and I know I've already done it for Fife, but I feel like they need a little bit of kudos for this, is the Manchester jersey.
Yeah.
Because they're the only team, of course, without having had sight of what Cardiff are going to put out there, who have the updated colours. So they have included the additional colours that are now part of the LGBTQ AI plus. So the additional colours are in there. Obviously, we know, without rehashing it again, we know that Manchester themselves and a player with Manchester made history as far as coming out as a player is concerned. But that's really cool to see. That stripe down the middle of the jersey is the updated colours. That's pretty cool.
The one thing I will say, and I'm only going to speak for myself on this, I can't speak for you two, but if any fans or anybody who's listening to this podcast doesn't agree and thinks that that they don't need to, certain teams don't need to make it politicize it, or don't need to highlight pride and highlight LGBTQ, and if there's anybody out there who feels that's your opinion, that's fine. I have a personal connection with it. I have friends and family, and I think it's about time that something like this happens, and then they can identify with something that's theirs and being included in something. So
it's not a political statement, It's
yeah. So yeah, there you go. Look at John's ready for tomorrow. Guys, I'm gonna leave it there. Actually, I'm leaving it there. That's it. That's our overtime done. Obviously, Aaron is not here this week with us. So we have sadly we have no ABCs of hockey this week.
I think this is the second one as well, because he hadn't read his book ahead of time last time.
No,
so
he hadn't.
It's a month without a bedtime story. I mean, there's a lot of tired people out there.
Awful. Before I do finish off this episode, I do want to do one shout out, and we will tweet it. You're listening to this podcast Friday, the 14th of January. Saturday, the 15th of January is a certain person's birthday. John Ford's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Your birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday tomorrow. Is. Not tomorrow.
Thank you. 35. Who'd have thought I'd make it this far?
I will scavenge through the numerous photographs on my phone and find a suitable one to put up on our Twitter.
Yeah, it's always that one time a year I wish that I hadn't started this whole thing of finding whatever the terrible photos we all have of each other on our phones are.
Maybe I'll be nice. Maybe I'll go something nice this year. You never know.
No, you won't.
You'll take one of the million of selfies that he's taken over the years on your phone.
Yep, that's true.
Now, if we're talking about selfies on somebody else's phone, Marty takes the absolute biscuit on that one from Germany. Half of my iCloud account is full of your face. my phone thinks you're me.
Oh dear. But with that, guys, then I'm just going to sign off for this week by doing our usual. So just our usual shout out and our usual call to action. If you like the podcast, if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to leave us a review. Give us a star review as well as a written review if you can. It'd be really appreciated. It all helps. If you want to listen to any of our previous episodes or look at the content that we've talked about today, we would advise you to do that, especially with one of the stories from our Knocky News. Check out our website at door14hockey.com. Don't be afraid to get in touch with us. Don't be afraid to interact with us and have a chat. You can do so through all of our social media channels. We're on all main social media, Instagram, Facebook, and also our main one is just Twitter at door14hockey. And don't forget you can access our podcast from any major podcast provider as well as smart speakers. So don't be afraid to ask Alexa, play Door 14 Hockey podcast. So anybody who's listening to that out loud, their Alexa will hopefully play. With that, we will sign off for this week. Everybody who's going to any games this week in the Elite League, please enjoy the colourful nature of this weekend. As John says, Dave, I don't know if you're going to be there yet this weekend, but we'll hopefully see you there. But if not, me and John will definitely be there with our pride related anyway, be that our something, and we'll also be spending our money to try and get a jersey. So we'll hopefully see some people around the arena. But with that, have a great weekend, and I'll sign off. I'm Marty.
And Dave.
I'm John.
Have a great week.